here in the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app and VTRN Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube.
Feller Chevrolet is now Apple Chevrolet. While the name's changed, we're still the same trusted Feller's team. Same management, same knowledgeable parts and service, same techs, same professional sales staff. With over 200 years of collective experience, we'll continue growing stronger alongside our community. From the newest Chevrolets to top quality pre-owned vehicles, Apple Chevrolet delivers the same unmatched customer service. Visit us at driveapple.com. Apple Chevrolet of Alta Vista, powered by the community we serve.
What do high-performing athletes have in common? They don't just train their bodies, they train their minds. The best competitors have a strong mental support system that keeps them focused, confident, and at the top of their game. Want that same support in your own life? Central Virginia Counseling can help. No matter what life throws your way, our team is here for you with 2 Lynchburg locations on Wigington Road and Timberlake Road and telehealth available anywhere in Virginia. Take the first step today. Visit centralvirginiacounseling.com.
Plenty of large insurance companies know something. If you're injured in an auto accident, it can feel overwhelming. They've defended themselves in thousands of personal injury cases while you've never been there. Thankfully, I have. Hi, I'm Dustin Rosser with Trost Law. I began my legal career defending insurance companies before joining Trost Law. I know how insurance companies think and how to navigate the complex legal system. So if you're injured and need someone to fight for you, just call me at 777-HURT and visit trostlaw.com.
Looking for everything happening in and around Central Virginia that used to be in the morning paper? Start your day at the lynchburgportal.com. Get the latest news updates from Bill Trevero, plus up-to-date weather from VTRN's own in-house meteorologist, Matt Ferguson. So you're always in the know before you head out the door. Want to listen on the go? Stream classic hits on Rewind 103.9. Get breaking local news on WIQO, or catch the best sports talk and play-by-play on VTRN Sports, powered by ESPN Radio, all right from the portal. Looking to save? Check out insane radio deals for great local discounts, or explore local podcasts featuring the voices and stories that make our community special. Plus, connect with local businesses through the Lynchburg Business Alliance directory and stay in the loop on the latest events from Lynchburg Tourism. It's all right here. Local news, weather, sports, deals, and more at the lynchburgportal.com. Your gateway to everything Lynchburg.
From the blue waters of the Chesapeake Bay to the hills of Tennessee, listen to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle on the VTRN Sports app. Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Well, we're about to go all over the place now. We will start off doing that with
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
So we've had a couple of thoughts here when it comes to Liberty Flames athletics. One of which is interesting. They've got Florida State in softball today. We'll have a recap of it. But they're 0-5 to start the softball season. And is it not the weirdest thing that I don't think anybody's even panicking over the fact that it's an 0-5 start? They have lost to number 4 Tennessee, number 9 Clemson. They've also lost to Missouri, number 9 Oregon, co-ranked number 9, and Notre Dame in that category. I mean, you're looking at 3 top 10 teams in there. Clemson's strong. Notre Dame is pretty good as well. Florida State's usually stout. Like, this is, I honestly think part of it may be, over. They might be gorging on humble pie at this rate for Dr. Dot Richardson, but it's literally just, let's challenge ourselves as much as we can and believe that it will set us up to be dominant in Conference USA play, particularly as the season unfolds. It's hard to disagree with that philosophy, but it's fascinating because this is, it's like Liberty's the bye game for the other team. Yeah. They're playing real challenging opponents, and it's we got to be ready right off the bat. I don't blame them. If nothing else, you get your metrics up and you prepare yourself, because for Liberty, it's, again, like a lot of sports over on the mountain, it's about being ready for conference tournament time, and we're in mid-February. We need to, if you're a Liberty fan, you're thinking, we need to be ready for, mid-May when we could potentially be making postseason runs. So you're thinking long view, even if it's a big hole right off the bat.
No, for sure. This is the kind of start you expect for Liberty softball when they play top. They'll be okay.
Meanwhile, Virginia Tech softball is where we go in.
Number 4.
They had a 2-game sweep against South Carolina this weekend. That's a top 15 team. By most estimations, Virginia Tech was going to be in the top 20 to 25. They were ranked in all the polls, and they vaulted their way up. That's a good win. It's a 2-game series at South Carolina. Shout out to Bree Carrico, who has been with us in the fast lane before, but is a relief pitcher for the Lady Hokies. She had a couple of real strong innings at South Carolina in her pitching over the weekend from Appomattox County High School. But this is again, stern test. If you're not in the SEC in particular, but even the Big Ten, we've seen with Oregon, UCLA is strong as well, then you want to test yourself to make sure you can prepare yourself for that, but also a chance to get big victories. For Virginia Tech softball, they are in a spot where they could legitimately, very easily, have an at-large conversation, and it's worth tipping the cap in that way. Meanwhile,
Number 3.
UVA men's and women's lacrosse over the weekend had their season openers, but they were moved from Klockner Stadium to the turf field, which is a big deal because it's grass, which is how men's and women's lacrosse is often traditionally played. Snow and ice. Is that not an indication that, until today in our area, TJ, this has been the first time that we've basically had the weather that's even friendly for this stuff to melt in a lot of places? Again, it has been plowed off of the roads, but it's not necessarily plowed everywhere else, and that's obviously has borne itself out.
No, for sure. I think we're finally getting to where roads are beginning to be drivable again, and hopefully the stadiums will be up to par soon with the weather rising.
No doubt. I mean, we're at the point now where that's our goal and our expectation. Virginia will have a big one in lacrosse this weekend. They're at Richmond, who's ranked number 8th in the country, and beat the Who's this past week. So right off the bat, hello. I know it's an ESPN Plus matchup, but while you're consuming college basketball over the weekend, it would be worth just keeping an ear out for what happens over in Richmond and what's a really compelling early season lacrosse matchup, a top 15 matchup between 13th ranked Virginia and 8th ranked Richmond. Meanwhile, speaking of college sports, we go more of that in
Number 2.
Yes, indeed. We have to bring this one up as well. Charles Bediako, ruled ineligible by 8. Here's the key point here. A Tuscaloosa judge, meaning that the player who was drafted in the NBA and had signed a contract, not played, but signed with the Spurs and played in their G League, will not be eligible. Look, I am all for player empowerment in this day and age. I don't blame Bediako and his reps for testing the system to see if it would work. I don't blame Alabama for going after this to see if they could get Bediako eligible to play. But at some point, draw the line. And I am glad somebody has stepped in. Ultimately, I know I'm cursing to some people here, but this is where it'd be nice to unionize college athletics. And again, I am traditionally one who will unionize and beep it out because I am not generally pro-unions in that regard. But when it comes to sports, the organization makes it much more feasible. This is an example of why that's the case. However, I'm glad we got to this point. Again, I get you can kind of nitpick because you got Neoclis of Dallas and Testa Ritter for Virginia Tech and Virginia, respectively, who've played in those leagues overseas, but it's not directly the NBA or NBA affiliated, and you've not directly signed those contracts and been involved in that. By the way, I would love the concept if you could go through the draft process and say, I'm not happy with my draft status, I'm coming back to college. But once you are committed to a professional organization and playing in even exhibition games, that's where the line is drawn. If you don't like your draft status and want to come back, I actually am opening to that idea. We do it in baseball.
Absolutely.
We've done it for years in college baseball, where you can be drafted, and if you don't like your bonus or wherever you are, you can come back. And coaches moan about it in football and basketball. Oh, we want our roster set. But guess what? They've adapted in baseball, and they will in basketball and football as well. If you put that rule in place, because they will reserve spots on their roster for players who may want to come back if they're good enough talent to contribute at the college level. And by and large, if you're testing the professional ranks, NBA and NFL, that is, you probably are good enough to be on your team's roster, and they would want to take you back in the future, even if it upsets the maniacal coaches. Meanwhile, a little bit of high school basketball in
Number 1.
Monday is the day where we were going to discuss this, but Heritage and EC Glass will play basketball last night, but Glass clearly asserting themselves as the top team in the Seminole District. I mean, we have just seen this so much so over the course of the season. Tip your cap to them. They passed the test. Boys basketball, they stay perfect. They season sweep Heritage. A real spirited crowd over at McHugh. The Lady Hilltoppers as well got a big victory and split against them. And I mean, you look at the last 4 days, if you count today, but 2 games in 3 days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you beat LCA. I know it was at home, but you sweep them. Then you sweep Heritage. This is an emphatic performance for EC Glass boys basketball that will be worth discussing when Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast joins us tomorrow in the Fast Lane.
No, I agree. The fact that they're doing this day after day after day, it's very impressive.
And the ability to adjust styles as well and
Exactly.
understand that. It's limited practice. This is a Glass team that, for the most part, I think if they had their druthers, they'd really like to play with a more tempo, but they've used lockdown defense. That's been the most impressive part. They hung in there, limited LCA to 52 points, which is not easy. Matt Klein, real good offensive and schematic coach. And, it was a more up-tempo game when they played over at LCA earlier this year. And then to hold Heritage to 35 points. I mean, again, I know the last one when they played over at Heritage earlier this year was more up-tempo, but the lockdown defense is the most impressive part I think you have to take away if you're a Glass fan, that with all these games in a short period of time where your legs can get tired and other high school athletes are used to playing competitively, I get that. But you're trying to budget things. For DJ Best, a guy that would like to run in a lot of cases, people forget just how good that defense is and is absolutely worth commending them. Meanwhile, speaking of adjustments, more on that in a moment when we get ready to get into the weeds. But if you need to adjust your budget, one way you can do it is by going to InsaneRadioDeals.com and enter the promo code FROZEN at checkout, because now through 3/2 get 32, 32% off the list price of every item when you enter the promo code FROZEN at checkout, now through March 2nd at InsaneRadioDeals.com. Now, more of Into the Weeds on basketball right now.
The haters say we get into the weeds. They may even say we get into the weed.
Smoke weed every day.
Nah, we love getting into the weeds to discuss some cool sports details here in the Fast Lane.
So Virginia will play tonight at Florida State. This is one of those, I don't know if I really wanted to touch this type of games if I'm a bettor, and I'm not really when college basketball rolls around. And again, not encouraging it, but I think it can often shape how you perceive a matchup. 7.5 is the spread in this. Virginia is more talented than Florida State. The Noles, though, have been kind of a tricky out lately. It's always challenging down there in Tallahassee. Duke basketball would know that, so would Carolina, but Virginia too. And you're coming off the Syracuse game. You're kind of in this lull of a stretch where it's just stack the wins, but it's not always been stylistically proficient for Virginia. They had to use double overtime at Notre Dame. They pulled away at Boston College. They beat Pitt pretty soundly last week. And then you obviously had the matchup against Syracuse over the weekend. But for Virginia, one of the other things is this is where the versatility of their lineup, I think it speaks to where Ryan Odom has been able to make adjustments. One of which is you got to tip your cap to him and to his willingness to change systems. Again, Tony Bennett, GOAT for Virginia basketball, more than Terry Holland, sorry, but I think both of them are in that category. But Ryan Odom a better fit for the modern game because of the challenges in roster reconstruction. And that is what we expected that Virginia could benefit from when Ryan Odom took the job, is his ability to mesh to different styles at UMBC, Utah State, VCU. And he mentioned this when he spoke a couple of days ago, that what he saw and when he saw that this team had the ability to gel and be one that has gotten to the 20-win mark already this season.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell initially, like, done this long enough to know, where, what certain teams look like and how quickly they pick things up. And, this particular team was further ahead, certainly offensively than some other teams that I've had.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like that. It is played out that way, but, you have different nights. I think, the flip side of this is sometimes you need a go-to score when something breaks down. And Carolina, as bad as the defense was, in particular, I think the coaching, honestly, where Carolina would get a steal or create a fast break and they would just go straight down the court, literally down the middle, and get a layup. The flip side is, especially when you're kind of going through the gauntlet of ACC play right now, you can have different guys that step off offensively. Sam Lewis was the big game this past Saturday, hitting 4 threes. Double-digit scorer, obviously. Basic math, 3 points and 4 threes is 12 right there. But Malik Thomas can do it on some nights. Testa Ritter can do it other nights. When you get Jakari White back and fully healthy, which you have not had to force him into the lineup, which has been a luxury for Virginia, all of that is big. And the role of flexibility and the embracing of role flexibility has been beneficial for Virginia, including the ability to be flexible with their systems and players within that.
Yeah, no different than with your overall team. You have trends within the season. How are you playing? You're not going to play your best the entire year. And so you kind of have ups and downs. And that's why the consistency of, playing time and all that is really important. But ultimately, as you get into the game, like when you have depth, you have to figure out who makes the most sense, down the stretch, for this situation.
That is the one thing, if you're Virginia, that you want, and it will benefit them if they can have more of these close games, is finding players that can step up defensively within their roles as far as guarding a position. That's crucial for Virginia. But also, yes, who can take over and score? Testa Ritter inside, great, but free throw shooting is a little bit of an adventure. I'm being diplomatic here. Because of that, I would want a second option, because if someone's really wise and you struggle from the line that much and you become the go-to scorer, Hack-a-Who. You remember Hack-a-Shack back in the day?
Yeah.
We're going with Hack-a-Who. I think, to me, that's the logical next step in explanation, which is why Ryan Odom doubled down on the idea that you like flexibility, but you also need some definitiveness as well.
I like guys to know when they're going in, whether it's starting or coming off the bench. I've had guys over the years that have been my leading scorer come off the bench. Stephen Ashworth at Utah State. Zeb Jackson was 6th man of the year a year ago at VCU. So, if you want to have a really good team, you need depth, and you have to have a shared sacrifice. And I think this group, is willing to sacrifice their individual goals for, winning, team success. And, when you have a group that's willing to do that, you have a chance to be competitive at the highest level.
They look like it. If there's one thing, that is the ability to identify players, different systems, but also what you're looking for in the transfer portal. Some guys are all about money, and it's very true. Some guys are about that plus culture and scheme fit. And you want to have the latter where guys are bought in and ultimately committed to improving over the course of the season. I get it. It's kind of an obvious comment, but it is what it is. Meanwhile, when we return in the fast lane, John Manson from ASeaRed.com is going to join us. We're going to table the fan feedback segment. I know we need to get to some of it. We've already gotten some really good feedback on Bad Bunny at halftime. Some context, by the way, from one of our listeners, friend of ours. He's a Puerto Rican. He's DJ work. So he's got an interesting angle and take to this. And then some on the court storming, as well as Liberty Flames athletics. And even looking back at the college football playoff, there's a lot to get to today as well for that. So we will do that when we return here in the fast lane on the VTR in Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTR in Sports.
Here we grow again at the Sheeler Motor Mile. It's here, the all-new Motor Mile Chevrolet and Buick in Radford. More brands, more selection, and the same exceptional service you expect from a trusted community partner. Whether you're shopping Chevrolet or Buick, you'll find quality, value, and a team that puts you first. From rugged trucks and SUVs to stylish cars and family-friendly vehicles, the Motor Mile has something for everyone. With straightforward pricing and top dollar for your trade, there's no better place to buy. Bring us your trade, newer, older, paid off or not, and see why your car is worth more on the Motor Mile. Plus, with more inventory arriving daily, now is the time to shop the Motor Mile. Sheeler owns the finance company and makes getting approved for credit simple and easy on the Motor Mile. Flexible financing options for every budget to get you on the road fast. Experience the Motor Mile at 3 convenient locations: Christiansburg, Radford, and Pulaski. For over 50 years, we've got Southwest Virginia covered. The all-new Motor Mile Chevrolet and Buick in Radford. Certified friendly staff. No games, no gimmicks. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at MotorMileChevroletBuick.com.
Hi, I'm Chuck from Aquatrack Adventures in Salem. The Virginia Talk Radio Network and InsaneRadioDeals.com have helped our company grow by sharing our company's message throughout Central and Southside Virginia. The gift cards and experiences sold on InsaneRadioDeals.com have brought us many new customers. If you're a business that wants to grow with a message that resonates and gets results, I highly recommend InsaneRadioDeals.com and the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Simply put, it works.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real technology so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590, where smart support meets real savings.
Yes, you want this winter to continue. The frozen temperatures, the snow, the sleet, the ice, and everything else. At InsaneRadioDeals.com, at least, because now through March 2nd, it's time to let it go, let go, let go of every item. Now through March 2nd, 3-2. Get 32% off the list price of every item at InsaneRadioDeals.com. It's simple. Enter the promo code FROZEN at checkout now through March 2nd at InsaneRadioDeals.com for 32% off the list price of every item. Normal restrictions still apply.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Is he going to say this to me?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Or is there potentially some merit to what we discussed earlier in the Fast Lane? VTR in Sports, Facebook Live and YouTube, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, however you listen to podcasts, and on those social platforms as well, because...
And guess what? We keep receipts.
Right there, if you missed anything. John Manson, founder, contributor, all things aseaofred.com, with us once again in the Fast Lane. John, great to be speaking with you. It was wonderful seeing you Saturday over at LA, Liberty Arena, Bel Air, however we term to call it. For the Flames, obviously, they're not trying to lose a basketball game. But is there a part of you that does wonder, hey, they've had a lot of big leads that have slipped away and they've had to hang on for dear life. Would it be beneficial for the reset button for the Flames if they lost the game, and obviously you'd rather lose it in the regular season than in Conference USA basketball play in the tournament?
Hey, thanks for having me on, and it's good to see you as well, too. I'm glad your boys survived their first trip to Bel Air. But, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation, and it's one of those things, you hear people have a lot about, should teams, take a loss before going into the postseason. And, like we talked about before, obviously the conference tournament down in Huntsville, Alabama is, where Liberty has to make their mark, right? That's where they can punch their ticket to the big dance. And we talked previously about the unlikeliness of them being seriously considered as an at-large team. So then the question becomes, would a loss behoove them? And I think for a lot of teams, it probably would. However, I think this Liberty team's a little bit different. And, I heard you talking about it a little bit earlier, how, you got those veterans and Cade Matheny, Colin Porter, and Zach Cleveland, and as well as, J.J. Harper and Josh Smith, who maybe are the first year playing at Liberty, but it's not their first year playing college basketball. These are guys that are veterans and been around a time or two. So, and they come from winning teams and teams that have made postseason runs before as well, too. So, I take a look like at the Middle Tennessee game on the road a week or two ago when, a lot of people at that point in time thought the Blue Raiders could potentially be one of Liberty's toughest challengers in Conference USA. And Liberty was locked in from the get-go and, got a double-digit lead quickly and held on to that double-digit lead pretty much throughout the game. Middle Tennessee made a run, got it down to 8, but then Liberty immediately answered and got it back to double digits. So I just think it's human nature, for teams to, especially like a Liberty who's, they're the defending conference champions, preseason team expected to win Conference USA again. And now they're, a 20-win team with just, the 3 losses, obviously, and you won 14 straight games, you're 12-0 in conference play, and everybody's expecting you to win. And then they do play well, like, Coach McKay talked about in the postgame Saturday, and, go on a 22-2 run and build a 20-point lead there in the second half. And, they kind of took their foot off the the gas a little bit, which is human nature. And, if you go back and look at the score, I mean, Liberty still was leading by double figures, late into that game, into the last media timeout. So I'm not sure the team was ever truly threatened in that late game run, though it might have felt like it in the moment. They were able to get it done. But again, you don't want to play with fire too many times because you'll ultimately get burned, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many angles to this, John. One of which is this, and I'm glad you didn't give me the Billy Madison treatment the first time, but I'll have to throw it out there again just for posterity's sake.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
For the record, that's what John would say to me, not me to him. So let's get that part clear. But John, for Liberty right now, when I look at this as well, is this reasonable observation? When Liberty has succumbed to these runs to an extent, at no point has it ever seemed like Richie McKay has been eager to call timeouts, give motivational pep talks or anything like that, but it's almost like he's allowing them to try to find ways to work through their problems and problem solve. Is that also part and parcel to the fact that maybe there's a little bit of experimentation going on during the regular season and building the trust up so they can troubleshoot on their own in postseason play?
Yeah, that's another good point you make there, Ed, is, and it's not like, this is a Liberty team, kind of like I was just talking about, that's brand new, a lot of pieces that are new to the team and inexperienced and unproven, at least at Liberty, like we might see next season. But this year, I mean, it's a proven bunch. Coach McKay's got a long leash of trust, if we want to call it that. And, he trusts these guys. He trusts them to figure it out. And, probably is a little slow to the punch to call a timeout, and understandably so, due to that trust that has been built up amongst that team and that core nucleus of players, and what they've done this season too. Like, I mean, we're 23 games into the year, so this team has certainly made its identity. So I think it makes sense to kind of, for him to not be quick to call a timeout, to not be too overly eager to try to halt runs and things like that. But another thing to it too that I think we've noticed is Liberty's offense this season has been so much better when they're playing at a tempo with some pace, and maybe that's one thing that I think we've seen a couple of times. I think it happened Saturday against Missouri State, where Liberty kind of slowed things down. You're up by 20 with 8 or 9 minutes left. The natural thing is to want to start to milk the clock as best as you can. And I remember one time in particular that Caden Matheny had an open lane to go to the bucket with probably 12 seconds on the shot clock, but he took one step towards it and then backed away and held the ball for another 5 or 6 seconds to take more time on the clock. So that could lead to it as well too, where maybe they're letting their foot off the gas a little bit too quick, and we're seeing that in them in the tempo they're playing with on offense. So we'll see how Coach McKay continues to tinker with this team, because you still got, over a month left until you get into the conference tournament down in Huntsville.
How much do people, John Manson of CFRed.com is with us in the past lane. John, how much do people also forget that, and this tweet has made its way around, including the Field of 68, and Jeff Goodman were the ones who brought this up, so we'll shout it out. But, people forget this. Richie McKay took over a program that was 19-45 in the 2 seasons before he was hired. He's obviously well above 500, 292 and 137 in his 10 and change seasons in Liberty, and he's gotten them to 3 NCAA tournaments in 3 different leagues. Before you totally panic if you're a Flames fan on this, is there a level of benefit of the doubt that Richie McKay has earned, even if it may seem unconventional to the understandably antsy fan?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, Coach McKay, if you're a Liberty fan, has earned every right to try to figure things out. And he's done it pre-COVID, post-COVID. He's done it in 3 different conferences. He's done it pre-NIL, post-NIL. He's done it with a lot of different types of teams, a lot of different makeups of his teams. He is Liberty basketball. He is Liberty men's basketball. And it's kind of interesting, if you go back and Liberty's won now 20 games in 9 of the last 10 seasons. And if you go back to his to pre-Richie McKay, before this run began, I think it was the first 43 years of Liberty basketball, only 5 20-win seasons. So I mean, Richie McKay has completely changed the entire tenor of Liberty basketball as a program moving forward, completely changed the expectations. I mean, this is a team that went from, basically one NCAA tournament appearance every decade to being expected to get to the NCAA tournament each and every season. And now even more than being expected to get to the big dance, the Flames are expected to compete and win games there like they did in 2019. And so much of the conversation about this team this year is, can they do that when they get there? What will it look like when and if they get to the tournament? Will it be like the Oregon loss that we saw last March, or will it be more like the 2019 team or even the 2021 team led by Darius McGee that, took future number 1 overall draft pick Cade Cunningham and Oklahoma State to the brink when, that was a 2-possession game, into the final media timeout there in Indianapolis. So, it just goes to show what Coach McKay has done. And I mean, it's kind of like so many coaches, Bill Belichick is one, even more locally, Tony Bennett, like you're a victim of your own success. And as you have changed the program, the expectations around the program has changed as well too. And Coach McKay willingly accepts that and, is willing to try to meet that raised bar that he has set for himself and for this program. But, like I said, Coach McKay is Liberty men's basketball.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he is. There's time to look at legacies and impact, and certainly I call that off-season discussions when we have a chance to delve into those topics in greater depth. But speaking of being maybe overlooked and underappreciated, I mean, I should have asked this like a month ago, by the way. Zach Cleveland was Conference USA Player of the Week for just the second time, and the second time any Flame has earned that honor this entire year. How astonishing is that? I know they spread the scoring around, and guys don't often light up the stat sheet consecutively, but Liberty is undefeated in Conference USA play, and yet they've only had 2 and 1 player times where they've been recognized for a Conference USA Player of the Week award.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting that it's happened, and I don't know if it's you just kind of expect to see it. I mean, a couple weeks ago, Hayden Matheny and his performance at Middle Tennessee, certainly in my opinion, was good enough. He scored 29 points, was good enough for league conference player of the week honors. But and you can even go back to last year. Liberty won the regular season title. Granted, it was a much closer race than it's been so far this season, and didn't have anybody on the first team all conference team. And you look forward to this year, like, what are the expectations for Liberty? I mean, let's say that the Flames do go 20-0 or maybe 19-1 in Conference USA play and win the regular season by 5 or 6 games, which is, pretty much the pace they're on currently. You would think that Zach Cleveland would certainly be in the mix for Conference Player of the Year, but how many first team all conference selections could Liberty get? And it might be one of those things where Cade Matheny deserves it, Brett Decker deserves it. I mean, Brett's leading the team in scoring, but how many people that vote for these awards are going to kind of split their votes between maybe a Matheny and a Decker, or even a Porter who could make a case for himself as well too. Look at what some of the things he's done this season and throughout his career. So you could see, I mean, Liberty probably deserves to have 3 first-team all-conference members, but when you get down to it, will there only be 1 because some of the votes are split amongst the other guys because it's such a team game, team-minded team and program. And, I mean, all 5 starters are currently averaging double figures, and there's not a ton of teams out there in the country doing that. And I think that's what makes this team so good and so special is, anybody can go off at any given night. I mean, the Delaware game a couple nights ago, it was a Alan Porter night who scored, over 20 points. And this past week, it was Zach Cleveland who, got his triple-double, and Brett Decker who went for 20 points. And obviously, Cade Matheny can do it. We've seen J.J. Harper do it. Even Josh Smith at times has had, flashes where he's put up 14 or 16 points in a game and 16 or 17 minutes. So, I think that just kind of goes to, just kind of who this team is really their identity, their unselfish play, their willingness to defer to their teammate, even when they, had a good shot, defer to their teammate for a great shot. And it'll certainly be interesting to see, I'm intrigued to see how many first team all conference members this Liberty team gets once we get into the postseason.
It'll be fascinating. The interesting element of the stat sheet. By the way, the other ironic thing is Brett Decker Jr. may be the most statistically gaudy of the Flames, and he hadn't gotten any of these awards.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, and he's certainly one of those guys that can heat up in just a moment's notice. And it kind of happened a little bit Saturday. I mean, it was Zach Cleveland, and it still is the case. Zach's been getting all the attention due to his triple double, and Zach was the guy that was attacking so much early and really taking the attack to the Bears and their front court, which is arguably the best front court in Conference USA. But then you look up and Brett's got 14 points or, ends up with 20 points. And so many times, maybe it seems so effortless for a guy like Brett or, he's so efficient, shooting over 50% from three. He's a guy, and I've had this conversation with others that, not to take away from anybody else on the team, but just kind of to prove, how good, how special, how talented Brett is. He's one of those guys that you think, you could see a much easier path for him to kind of take his game to that next level, whether that's, if he were to want to transfer into the transfer portal at the end of the season or even playing professionally, because others, it seems like they got some limitations, whether Zach's, maybe not a good enough shooter or not quite big enough to be a true post player. And, Colin and Caden, obviously the size limitations and things too. So, it's really a dynamic offensive team Coach McKay and his staff's put together this season.
Couple more with John Manson from the Fast Lane in the Fast Lane on W227 BG Timberlake, WVGM Am Lynchburg, WMNA Gretna Danville Southside, the VTR in Sports app, and VTR in Sports on YouTube and Facebook Live, as well as Fast Lane Ed Lane on our platforms. John Manson is with the seaofred.com. John, pivoting off of that, Super Bowl 60. It may not go down as the most aesthetically appealing contest, but how cool was it to see Liberty Flames alum and former star DeMario Douglas to see Pop catch some passes? Would have loved to have been a touchdown, so my bet could have cashed. But how cool was it to see Pop Douglas get action and meaningful action in the Super Bowl, repping Liberty on the biggest stage?
Yeah, you're not the only one that put in an anytime touchdown wager for Pop Douglas in and around Liberty and Lynchburg circles. But no, I mean, he's the second player, former Liberty player to ever play in the Super Bowl. And, unfortunately came up on the short end of things, but, put up a stat line that was solid and pretty impressive and, something nobody will ever take away from him, something that he, can take with him, and tell his kids and grandkids, I'm sure, one day. And, it just kind of goes to show the continued growth of the Liberty athletic program as a whole, not just, football, but the entire athletic department. As you continue to put out players good enough to get into the NFL, you're going to see this happen more and more. And kudos to the Liberty Athletics, led by obviously athletic director Ian McCaw and his staff. And obviously Pop Douglas played primarily under Hugh Freeze and had a really good career. And he was one of those players that he was always a dynamic athlete. You always knew that anytime he got his hands on the ball, he could take it to the house, whether that was as a receiver, as a running back, or as a returner. And he did all of those things for the Flames. And we saw a little bit of that flash, some of that athletic ability flash on the biggest stage in the Super Bowl. So certainly really cool to see, and hope he can get back there again soon. And you never know, you might have Malik Willis as a starting quarterback after free agency is done with here in the next few months as well, too.
That is a topic we'll get to a little later, Malik Willis and NFL free agency, because we want to wrap it up on this, John. Liberty Flames softball. 0-6 is where they could be starting, and yet, I mean, am I off base? I don't even think anybody's panicking. It's just like, yeah, we could have expected this, because their start to the season is featuring, for their first 6 games, against top 9 teams in the country. And oh, by the way, when they get through this, they've still got Alabama, who's number 8 in the country, for a couple of games, and Virginia Tech a couple of times later this season as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the. I mean, it's not uncommon to see Liberty come out the gates a little slow in softball, and you mentioned the tough schedule, and it's going to continue. That's what Coach Dot loves to do, is to challenge her team, and she's got some veterans, that have returned and played a lot the last couple of years for Liberty softball, but also a lot of unproven players, and really needs to figure out who's going to be that person that can step up in the circle, whether that's a Keelan Yoder or maybe a Gabby Mike. And we saw both of them in the opening weekend, and they showed flashes, but not consistent enough. And also too, another thing, I mean, Lynchburg's been blanketed by snow the last 3 weeks almost now. So how much time have these players gotten on the field over the past month or so? Obviously, Liberty's got great facilities and able to get indoor and work out some there too, but it's not the same as being outside under the lights playing softball as well too. So how much did that have a factor into it? So it's a long season. Obviously, some of those key performers from last year have moved on, like a Rachel Roop and a KK Madri and some others, Elena Escobar in the circle, but a lot of expectations around this team, and I'm sure those will continue as Liberty, ultimately wants to compete for that Conference USA championship and get back to regional play once again. So they do take on Florida State tonight, another challenge before heading to Alabama for the Bama Bash this weekend in Alabama.
Let's just load them up, make them as hard as possible. Meanwhile, it is not hard to find the good insight on the Liberty Flames. John Manson, as at seaofred.com. Here in the Fast Lane, generous enough to share his time. John, great to chat with you. Thank you so much for giving us a moment of your time today. We're grateful for it, and look forward to seeing you again in a little over a week next time.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on it.
John Manson with us here in the Fast Lane. Always great to catch up with him. Thanks to him. Thanks to you. Thanks to TJ for us today as well. We sign off. We send it over to Freddie and Harry in progress, and then we're back tomorrow, 5 to 6 p.m. VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
Alphago orator by the name of Uncle Luke prompted the world with one question: what is that number one zodiac sign? And as we celebrate Black History